Let's go down to the Mid-Atlantic. Let's take a look. We got plenty of clear conditions throughout the interior parts of the Mid-Atlantic. Plenty of clouds on the eastern side. Wind-wise, they're quite light though. It looks like as though they're coming from the sea and then shifting to the south and southwest, but a little light and variable on the western part. Temperatures all across the region, they're in the 60s, but in the 50s to mid 60s in West Virginia and Virginia. But dew point value is quite high on the eastern side and quite low on the western side. Let's go to the Carolinas and Georgia. Let's take a look. Plenty of cloud coverage all over the coastal part of the Carolinas and Georgia, but it's quite clear throughout the interior parts, and this is known as the High Line. It's a geological thing where I learned about this, where plenty of cities in the interior parts, but quite not as populous on the coastal side though. Wind-wise, looks like winds are actually coming from the northeast, blowing at around no more than 10 knots, but gets somewhat variable in some places throughout the interior parts of the Carolinas and Georgia, particularly like right around Atlanta, especially Atlanta too. Temperatures all across the Carolinas and Georgia, they're in the 60s to low 70s from what it looks like. Tennessee, it's quite popular with so much of this that's going on there. Tennessee is the worst. But regardless, most of the state does have clear skies, so not much to worry about. Maybe a few places with some clouds, but not much though. Temperatures all across the volunteer state, they're in the 60s and 70s for the most part. Dew point values at the 50s. Let's take a look at Alabama, Mississippi. Alabama, Mississippi, dry conditions. The winds are plenty. In Alabama, they're coming from the southeast. Mississippi, very light and variable. And what about Tennessee? Did I miss out? Not much though. Some winds are due coming from the northeast, but this cold front doesn't really give me any better indications. Florida, well, there's some places where there's plenty of cloud coverage from places like central part of Florida, like Jacksonville, all the way down to Tampa, and anywhere north of West Palm Beach. But it's quite nice down south towards South Florida and the Keys. Let's take a look. Temperatures throughout the Sunshine State, they're in the 70s to low 80s. Dew point values are in the 60s. Take a look at Arkansas. Mostly clear conditions. A little mostly cloudy, just located in the southwestern part of the state. Temperatures are in the 70s from what it looks like, though wind-wise, not much, just light and variable. Louisiana, similar story, but very clear though. Temperatures are in the 70s to low 80s. Dew point values are in the upper 40s to low 60s. Let's take a look at Oklahoma. Plenty of dry conditions, though in the eastern part of the Sooner State. A little bit of clouds. The temperatures, they are in the 80s, well, the mid 70s to low 80s. In Texas, much of the Lone Star State, they're quite dry with temperatures virtually they're in the 70s to 80s. But even that didn't really do much to stop the air quality alerts from being issued. I don't know why I just made my English sound so horrible. Dew point values in Oklahoma and Texas, they are in the 50s. So for the most part, they have been dealing with some dry weather. In the Ohio Valley, well, let's take a look. We got plenty of dry conditions with somewhat light and variable winds. Back in Texas, some places have winds. Some places have northeasterly winds, but on the western part, winds are moving generally to the north. But one is actually coming from the north, though. And in Oklahoma, winds are moving to the northeast at up to 10 miles an hour. Maybe around 15 in western Oklahoma. In Yeah, in places like the Ohio Valley, somewhat light and variable winds. Temperatures all across the state. They're in the 60s to low 70s for the most part, with dew point values in the 40s to low 50s. Let's take a look at the Great Lakes. You got Michigan, the central part of the Great Lakes, like central Michigan. You have plenty of cloud coverage. Winds are generally coming from the northeast and also northeastern Wisconsin too, but otherwise it's going to be dry though for the most part. Winds are actually coming from the northeast, but on the western side they're coming from the north. Temperature wise, they're in the 50s from what it looks like. Dew point values are in the 40s, so that means that some places are dealing with some cloud coverage. In the Dakotas and Minnesota, clear skies for most of Minnesota. Plenty of partly to mostly cloudy skies throughout the central Dakotas. Winds, for the most part, they're actually coming from the south. So you can see, folks, temperatures all across 3 states. They're in the mid 50s to mid 60s. Then we go down along the Missouri River. You have mostly dry conditions, clear skies, though in eastern Missouri, some clouds are there. Winds, they're actually coming from the southeast, moving into the Dakotas. Temperatures all across the region, they range from the upper to mid to upper 50s to the upper 70s, but the warmer parts are in the western part of the plains. Right here in Kansas, in western Kansas, but it gets cooler just to the east and to the north. Dew point values are in the they range from the low 40s to the low 60s. It's very humid in Kansas. In the Dakotas and Minnesota, dew point values are in the 30s to the 40s. This does explain plenty of dry weather, but in some places just a little higher there in terms of the dew point value, like 50s in the western part of South Dakota. In the Northern Rockies, dry weather is mostly to the east, but there's plenty of overcast skies throughout much of the Bitterroot Mountains and the Northern Rockies. Yet temperatures throughout Montana, they are, let's see, we got 50s on the western side, eastern side you get upper 50s to 60s. Dew point values are in the 40s. But there's plenty of some winter weather that's located up in the mountains, though. In Idaho, temperatures range of. Let me just remove this. Yeah, temperatures are in the 40s and 50s throughout Idaho. Dew point values are quite low there, but in northeastern Idaho, you get 53 degrees. And in Wyoming, on the eastern side, it's quite dry. Western side, it's quite cloudy. Temperatures are in the 50s and mid 60s, and there is temperatures in the 70s in northeastern Wyoming. Dew point values are in the 40s and 50s, which means that dry weather is to the east, yet wet weather is to the west. Now let me zoom in just to get a better sense of what we're dealing with. Flathead National Forest to Glacial National Park. Yeah, there are no reports because there are no stations there. So that means I'm on my own on this one. But we can only depend on the radar, you know. Alright, so let's go down to the Great Basin states. Colorado, plenty of overcast skies all over the mountainside of the state. Eastern side's quite dry, light and variable on the western side, but in Colorado, winds are coming from the southeast. Temperatures throughout Colorado, they range from 46 to 68. Though it's quite warm on the eastern side, but western side's quite chilly. In Utah, wind directions are all over the place, especially plus wind speeds as well. But from an overall perspective, I would say winds are coming from the southeast, then shifting to the southwest. It's quite cloudy on the east side, but very dry elsewhere. Temperatures all across the state, they're at 47 just southwest of Salt Lake City. To the northwest, it's at 70. But elsewhere, temperatures are in the 50s and 60s on the southeastern side. In Nevada, okay, so what do we got? Okay, so we got winds are coming from the southeast in southeastern Nevada, northwest and northwestern Nevada, so seeing quite a difference there. Temperatures are in the 60s on the eastern side, 40s and 50s on the north and western side. Well, we do have plenty of overcast skies throughout northern Nevada. Throughout the Great Basin, it's quite moist anywhere in Utah and Colorado and eastern Nevada, where dew point values are in the 40s and 50s. It's quite dry. Dew point values in the 30s in northwestern Nevada. Then we do have some overcast conditions in some parts of the desert southwest. They vary, though, in terms of geography. Otherwise, it's going to be clear. Temperatures throughout the desert southwest. Let's take a look. We got 60s and 70s all over New Mexico, and plenty of temperatures that are in the 50s throughout the northern part of the state. Southern part, temperatures are in the 70s, 60s to low 70s, that is. Yeah, but wind-wise, in New Mexico, they're actually coming from the south. Otherwise, it's going to be very variable in Arizona. California, let's take a look. Well, dew point values are in the 50s throughout much of the desert southwest, though, which does explain the moisture. In California, let's take a look. Dry conditions throughout much of the Golden State. Wind values are quite variable, though, for the most part. In the desert, you have winds are coming from the desert. Along the coast, they're coming from the northwest. It's quite cloudy in some places in California. Temperature-wise, they're in the 50s from the Oregon border all the way down to Salinas, then 60s all the way to the Mexican border. And cross into, then moving inland, you got Central Valley, California. Temperatures are in the upper 40s to low 60s. Sierra Nevada's temperatures are in the 40s and 50s. Well, but then going down to California, going down in the desert, temperatures are in the 70s. Dew point values vary. You got 50s all over the coast. Inland, you get really low dew point values. The Sierra Nevada is going up to the Pacific Northwest. Plenty of cloud coverage throughout the Pacific Northwest. Temperatures throughout Oregon, they are in the 40s and 50s. Washington State, same story, but at 39. But this one here, this one that says X,